Welcome to the Tavern, World Builders! Today we are talking about the fantasy heist novel, The Lies of Locke Lamora. Beware for those who have not read this novel, here there be spoilers. Grab an ale, zero proof always available, and pull up a chair. I'm Emma, your friendly barkeep, along with Allison.
Hello!
And Christiana.
Hi!
And we are so happy to have you here. Cheers!
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 So, just a heads up, today's description is just going to be a little bit longer just because being a heist, there's a lot that happens in this story. There's a lot of twists and turns. So I promise it's not going to be like 5 minutes long, and I think it'll be helpful, especially for us, because we also need to keep the story straight for talking about it.
I read this so long ago, I forget.
In a Venice-like city in which the nobility and the underdogs have a certain understanding and know not to get involved with each other for both their benefit, Locke Lamora's gang, the Gentlemen Bastards, are the pioneers in the art of the con. The lives of these con artists get turned upside down when in the middle of pulling a con, an outside player changes the course of the story. This story is told through chapters and interludes, the latter being set in the past and the former in the present. The Gentlemen Bastards are masters of deception and disguise. Father Chains, their garista leader, is a priest of the Crooked Warden, the god of thieves. Through a series of confidence tricks on the rich, they defy the secret peace, an unspoken agreement between Kappa Barsavi, lord of the criminal underground, and the Duke's government, which allows for the existence of organized crime with the understanding that the peerage, the nobility, and the servants of justice are off limits. After Chains' death, Locke becomes garista of the group, consisting of Jean Tannen, an expert fighter, Callo and Galdo Sansa, jack-of-all-trades identical twins, Bug, a young apprentice, and Sabetha, a master charmer who resides elsewhere during the events of the novel. The con trick the noble Don Lorenzo Salvara and his wife into parting with their fortune. The complication, a mysterious criminal calling himself the Grey King has been killing Barsavi's most trusted garistas, turning the underworld on its head. Locke finds himself face-to-face with the Grey King and his hired bondsmage, the Falconer, who have found out what the Gentlemen Bastards have been up to, and use this as leverage to blackmail the small gang into assisting in their plot against Barsavi. After playing their part, however, the Bastards are double-crossed by the Grey King, resulting in the deaths of Caldo, Gallo, and Bug, and the theft of their own stolen fortune. Left without resources and needing funds to somehow strike back at the Grey King, Locke tries to complete the con against the Salvaras, but in the meantime, the Duke's spider, Comor's secret spy master, has sussed out the scheme. She and the Salvaras lure Locke to the Duke's annual celebration, and Locke barely escapes imprisonment. Returning to their hideout, Locke finds Jean incapacitated by the bondsmage sorcery, which relies on the use of Jean's true name. Locke, whose real name is not known, overpowers the Falconer and tortures him for information, learning that the Grey King has planned his revenge against Barsavi and the nobles of Comor since childhood, when his parents were murdered as collateral damage from the secret peace. To destroy the peers, he gave the Duke of Comor 4 sculptures for his celebration, which are actually time bombs filled with a substance that will cause all of the nobles and their children present at the celebration to slide into permanent mindlessness. Locke races back to the party from which he escaped and manages to convince the Spider and the Salvaras of the danger, and the devices are defused. Locke faces the Grey King in mortal combat even though he is outmatched by the Kappa's skills with a sword, and is nearly killed before managing to distract the Grey King for the split second he needs to finally slay him. At the end of the novel, Jean and Luke, recovering from their injuries, sail away to a new life.
It's coming back to me.
Yeah.
I said his name is Jean.
That's fair. I wasn't sure which. I realized as I was reading the description, I was like, in my head, I've always said Jean, but I don't know which one it is. It's spelled Jean, so it could be either, presumably. Shall we look it up, or should we just go ahead with reckless?
You say it how you want to say it.
Confidence.
I'll probably say Jean, just
There we
because
go.
that's how I said it in my head.
Yes, just know Jean and John are the same person, and feel free to look it up yourselves and let us know.
Yeah.
With that, let's dive right into Happy Hour. So this was a fan-voted, patron-voted novel selection. We had 3 different heists that we let people choose from, and Lies of Locke Lamora was chosen, which I was happy about because I have read it before and I really enjoyed it. And I'm curious, Christiane and Allison, what did y'all think of it?
I liked it, but I feel like I was prevented from loving it because I had a hard time empathizing with Locke as the protagonist.
Really? Interesting.
Ooh.
Like, he's really interesting, but just his own lack of empathy made it hard for me
you
to...
felt like he had a lack of empathy?
I
That's
do.
so interesting. I totally don't read him that way at all.
Oh,
Fascinating. Say more.
Well, I kept comparing him to Kaz from Six of Crows, which is another
A
heist
fair
novel
comparison.
and one of my
Yeah.
favorites.
Yeah, and which was one of the other options in the.
That was
in
one of the other
vote.
options.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll read it in a future podcast season. And I really like Kaz, and so I was like, they're kind of similar. So why do I like Kaz and why don't I like Locke? And I feel like Kaz has this sort of. He's always kind of hovering on the edge of doing the right thing. And by the right thing, I mean sort of like the choice that is healthier versus the choice of like choosing revenge and going down this really unhealthy path.
Mm-hmm.
And that choice is sort of always hovering and you never quite know what he's going to do. You're always rooting for him to make the healthy choice and get together with the female love interest. And then you're kind of like, no, you have to. And then he doesn't. He makes a bad choice. And anyway, and I felt like
this
that.
is Allison's backdoor way of talking about Six of Crows.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'm going to talk about it because we didn't get to read it. And then Locke never really had that similar. It was always sort of. He's kind of always making the selfish choices. And
what
you
about
don't really
the choice to go back to save all the nobles? Like, he very well could have
sure.
gotten arrested. Well,
That's true, I guess.
But it's not a choice for love. I
yeah,
see
it's
where
not
you're
like
coming
a
from with that.
personal. Yeah, I don't know.
Isn't that more selfless, though? Because he's doing it just because
Yep,
it's the right
you're right.
thing.
You
and
are
not
right.
Because...
You're correct.
I'm
you're
sorry,
correct.
this is just very interesting. This is just
Yeah,
talking because it's
no,
fun,
I
not a
don't
challenge
know.
whatsoever.
Yeah. I'm also like trying to figure it out myself. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is fun to unravel why you do or don't like things.
Yeah, it always is
Yeah.
and interesting. Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I did. I had fun with it. I love a good heist. I'm a sucker for a heist. I see what you're saying. Locke, to me, wasn't the most amazing character.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I found myself struggling to relate to them, and I always like it when I can relate to a character to some extent. Although I will say I think the author did a really good job of not falling into the trap of, like, there's a difference between headstrong and stubborn. And Locke is definitely headstrong. I wouldn't say that Locke is stubborn.
That's an interesting distinction, yeah.
Right? Because, like, headstrong is like, no, I'm going to do the thing that I think is best, and I'm going to find a way to do it that suits everyone. Whereas stubborn is like, well, I don't want to do that. I'm going to do this instead.
Stubborn
like, I feel
is
like
also sometimes illogical, whereas like headstrong is like Locke is very logical.
This is
He'll make
this makes the most
choice.
sense.
Yeah,
so
it's like
I'm doing
it's like
that.
confidence versus like whininess, kind of like as a motivator,
Yeah,
almost,
a
or
little
like
bit.
something. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so I enjoyed that character. I did find the lack of female characters noticeable.
Yeah, we had one female character mentioned, but
she's
even
off screen.
there.
She's not even there. She's off
She
screen.
is in later books. And in there's 2 more books in this series, and there are many more female characters.
Yeah,
and I don't know if the author like got that feedback or if that was. But yeah, you're right. There's like I don't think there's any. There's like 2 like side characters
not
that get
named
mentioned.
ones at least, kind of
Yeah.
thing. Like, but I
The
will say I
Spider's
think
a
it's
woman, which is cool.
yes.
That's
I was
true,
going to say I think it's interesting that there are a lot of women in this kind of mafioso-esque crime syndicate. It's just whether they're named and they're main players or not, kind of thing. So I found that interesting. I wasn't offended by it in any way, shape, or form, but I was like, they're all dudes, every single one of them, kind of thing. But yeah, so I really enjoyed it. It was written in 2006, was it not?
That sounds right.
Older.
Yeah, it's older, and I feel like that shows reading it in 2025, almost 20 years later. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like, I can see
anything
some
in
of
particular,
these.
or was it just the like no female main characters?
Some of the tropes where I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I could imagine that folks reading it at the time were like, this is an entirely original thing, and at this point,
gotcha.
20 years later, it kind of feels like a trope a tiny little bit.
Right.
Which isn't a bad thing, as we've said many times. Tropes are fine. Like the twins being like comedic relief. I feel like that's a trope at this point.
Right.
Or like
yeah.
2 twins who are, goofy
the
but way too smart.
Yes.
Yeah, way too smart for their own good kind of thing. So I did really enjoy it. I did have fun with it, and I didn't guess where it was going, which is not to toot my own horn, but toot. Usually,
you usually know where things are going.
I'm pretty good at guessing the twists. This one I had no idea. So I really enjoyed it for that reason.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, so it's like of its time lesson, like, because often when we hear like, oh, you can tell it was from the early 2000s, it's like, oh, because that's problematic and that like aged really poorly. But it's more like, you can tell when it's written more like, if you read a vampire novel, you're like, yes, this came out in 2010 because that's when vampires were the rage.
Yeah,
like
exactly. So like there was just a couple little things where I was like, oh yeah, okay. That was like a new thing in 2006 and now reading it in 2025. You're like, okay, we've seen this before kind of thing. Not that that's saying it's bad or anything, but yeah.
No, but it's interesting. It's like when you look at like a picture and you're like, oh, that's from that decade because I can tell the fashion.
Exactly.
It's like that kind of thing, which is neat.
There's just little artifacts in the text where I was like, oh yeah, okay, this is written in the mid-aughts. Yeah.
How did you two feel about the structure of the past and the present? Like there's constant flashbacks.
Good question. I think that's divisive because like just stuff I've read about it, there's people who are like, I like it, people who didn't. I loved it. I thought the little vignettes, because often they were kind of like not directly about the main character. Like some of them were, a lot of them were about like the characters' pasts, and then there were like interludes that were more about the world at large and not just our characters. So I thought it was a nice way of like the past ones getting to know our characters was really interesting without having to like linearly go through like, oh, this is him when he's 6 and we're going to go all the way till when he's 21 or whatever. And I really like the little looks at the rest of the world too, because I thought they like fleshed it out in an interesting way without being too lore dumpy, but that's just my opinion. I know other people were split. So I, in summary, really liked that setup.
I liked it too. I think it added to the mystery, but that is actually also one of the things that I feel like is an artifact of the mid-aughts. Kind of like the record scratch. I think I've said this in a previous episode. I bet you're wondering how this happened. I think it adds to the mystery because I think if you're delving into a pretty lore-heavy whodunit or a heist or any sort of like mystery-based thing, I'd imagine most readers, this is an assumption, I imagine most readers are okay or kind of anticipating confusing plot lines to some extent. So I thought
territory,
it fit the genre very well. I didn't have an issue with it.
Allison, what did you think?
I'm glad you both enjoyed it. I didn't really like it. And I'm fine to be in the minority because I like it when other people enjoy books. I found it unnecessary. Like, often when there's flashbacks, I like it when the flashbacks sort of reveal something surprising, or like there's a reason that I'm being told it out of order. And I couldn't figure out a good reason in this. Emma's raising her hand. I'm sure that there is a good reason. Go for it. What do you think the reason is?
And I hadn't thought about it until you brought up this question, so thank you. I think the reason is that it gives you an explanation for why Locke is sort of the like spy master or thief extraordinaire. Otherwise, it could come off as a little bit annoying of like, oh, he's young and he's a genius and he's so good at all of this stuff. And like, why does he know how to like do all these accents? And why does he know how to cook? And like, isn't that so convenient? So I think showing kind of the process of how he learned all that stuff and like where he started.
Oh, no, I think I like that his childhood is shown. I just think it could have been done in chronological order and it wouldn't really have changed anything. But I am thinking a little bit now about what Christiana said, that there's so much happening in the present that maybe the past flashbacks kind of break that up a little bit so that you're not overwhelmed with so
or maybe
much
it's building
going
the
on.
tension because you like flip away from the main story and then in the back of your head you're like, what's happening?
I was like, I want to go back to the present. I don't want to be in the past anymore.
I will say specifically
fair.
Ending almost every chapter on a cliffhanger and then being like, okay, but forget that. Here's a small tidbit. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I was kind of annoyed by that.
That's fair.
I did really like the past scenes. I do think they are necessary. Yeah, I was just questioning whether that was the correct structure for doing.
I think it might have been boring if it did all.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, if it was all his childhood, it could be just like, why do I care about this child? And like...
See, I think I would have had the opposite. I would have cared so much about the kid. And been like super invested in that story, and then all of a sudden it's like, and then the next half of the book is like, by the way,
I'd be curious to like next reread, try and read it in chronological order, and like see how that impacts
goes.
It. Yeah. So maybe there's our challenge in the future when we reread this. All right, we have been in happy hour for far too long, although we have been sort of talking about core stuff already. So let's jump on over to Tavern Talk. So, as we have talked about a lot, this is a heist novel, which we are all, I think, fans of just at the premise.
Yes.
Like, I love a heist. A heist is so much fun, especially a fantasy
Yeah.
heist. Like,
Yeah.
it's cool. And there's a lot of, like, tropes and elements that go into a heist novel. So, group plans and executing an elaborate crime, which absolutely happens here. Like, that's what they do all the time. And that's what they're doing throughout this whole novel, is this very elaborate scheme within a scheme within a scheme, which is very fun.
I think you might see it in movies more often, like just off of the top of my head. Ocean's 11, Kingsman, The Italian Job.
I love The Italian
And I think that's part of where the, like, past flashbacks make sense. It's almost a trope in and of itself to be like, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this. Oh, but how is that going to work? Psych, we're already in the future. And this is how we, troubleshooted the problem, and like, that
doesn't
sort
Now
of thing.
You See Me, that the magician heist movie, doesn't that do it
does
too?
the exact
where it's like,
same
oh,
thing.
we already pulled it off. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like that's very, very common in heist-focused stories, for sure.
Yeah.
But that's why people love them, right?
Mm-hmm.
You generally see the crew getting together, setting up, and then as they're explaining the plan, saying, we're going to do X, Y, Z, all of a sudden it's like, the twist is that they already did it. And here's how it went wrong, or here's how it went well, kind of thing. So.
In this novel, is really interesting because there were so many different, like, lies and cons going on at the same time. Like, on the one hand, there's like they're trying to con this man out of all his money by pretending to be down on their luck merchants, essentially, who are trying to get this big contract. Then they're also lying to the crime boss and pretending that they're not as successful as they are because they're robbing the nobles who they're not supposed to be. And then they're also, with their original heist, they then dress up as, like, secret police officers and go in and essentially tell the guy they're conning, hey, you're being conned, but we're investigating this, so keep going along with the con, which is so funny, and I thought really so smart, because it's like, then it doesn't matter if your story doesn't line up, because they already know that you're conning them, which was hilarious. So it's just like, there's so many deceptions going on in this story, so it, like, is a triple heist, almost.
Personally, I love the collecting the experts for your crew type, and I guess we didn't
always my favorite
really
part
get
of
to
any
see
heist.
that in this book. Maybe that's another reason I was like, I wanted that. So I think you need, like, a really unique set of characters, almost like quirky characters. That's a common thing in heist novels, I think, or heist stories, where you have
there's like the
crew.
one super ridiculously
you need the
intense expertise, who can contortion themselves into the box.
And you did have that here, like, you had the twins who were very good at, like, distracting people.
But they were also kind of jack of all trades.
They were,
so they weren't experts. They were just, like, kind of, whatever.
And then you had John, who was kind of like the muscle. Yeah. Actually, he was my favorite character, maybe.
He's a great character. Now that you say that, I wonder if that's kind of a thing that the flashbacks do, because they are kind of assembling the team. They just assembled the team 20 years ago. So, like,
that's how I took it a little bit.
Yeah,
that's here's
fair.
our
So
crew,
you do get that. And
then the flashbacks.
Those were actually some of my favorite scenes. I think my favorite scene was when John joins the group at first and Locke doesn't like him.
Locke
and
hates
is like,
him.
He's not good enough. He's new and I don't like change, which I very much relate to. I don't like change. So that was one of my favorite parts.
And then they become best friends. Their friendship is so cute.
It's so
like
good.
that's
maybe it's being a queer person, but I was like, they're gonna date. He's gonna realize that.
I see. I could ship it. Locke is so, like, smitten with his lady love that he's blinded to anybody else.
Obsessed with the girl who doesn't show up.
But that could be his best friend. Then they kiss. That was my whole time. I was like, and then they kiss, right?
You were here all along. Who needs her?
I know that was hopeful. That was wishful thinking for sure. But
so there's also, of course, the trope of the brilliant gentleman thief, who Locke is obviously fills that role in this. And then oftentimes they're, like, just out of jail putting together a crew for one last job, which wasn't the case for this one. It ended up being one last job, tragically, but that was not through their own decisions.
I think you need the leader character who's, really driven.
Yes.
And who wants to take care of his crew.
Yeah. you see that again. I keep comparing it to movies because I feel like you see more heist movies than you do books.
Mm-hmm.
But like, again, Ocean's 11, you have Danny Ocean is his name.
That sounds
George
right.
Clooney's character.
That's
Fresh
it.
out of prison, one last heist.
Yeah.
And then also with the whole Brilliant Gentleman thing, again, Kingsman, James Bond to some extent.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Italian Job, you have the character who was mentored by the really brilliant guy who retired, you know?
Yeah.
And he's really smart. They're often the leader is very, very clever. Because they have to
and
pull
like
off
charming.
a difficult heist.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because to con people,
that's how you do
have
the
to be
con.
pretty charming.
Yeah, you need a high charisma to.
I guess depends what kind of con. But
True.
Yeah.
It is interesting that Locke is not described as being really attractive, because that's often part of being the like brilliant leading man, and he is described as being like entirely average, like just blends into a crowd.
Which is actually quite helpful for a thief.
You know? Very helpful for a thief, but a little bit different than that trope sometimes that you see of, like the Clooney who's not
exactly.
any crowd.
Yeah. I kept picturing him as George Clooney in my head, which I was like, this is not accurate. But I kept thinking of Ocean's 11, and I was like, okay, sure, George Clooney. Yeah.
Tension and twists, of course, is a big part of heists, which I think there was definitely twists. Like, there's quite a few things that I didn't see coming, like them killing Kappa Barsavi's daughter. I did not see coming the first time. Like, the Grey King kills her
and a
as
horrible
way
way to do it.
Oh, awful! Yeah, she gets put into a barrel full of horse urine, which is horrifying.
Yeah,
which was the point, because the Kappa had sensed danger and like went into hiding, so they needed to draw him out. Not they being the Grey King, not the Gentleman Bastards.
Doesn't Locke also get stuffed in a barrel?
He also gets stuffed in it because he then impersonates the Grey King, and so Barsavi's like, in revenge, I pushed you into a barrel of horse urine.
You have the same fate. Yeah, which is so
awful. Yeah.
Okay, this is gonna sound so wrong. I really enjoyed that. Not because I think that's a good thing to happen to people. Some heist things are so focused on the mystery and the twists that they don't actually get into like the gritty part of crime.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, it's so like glamorized
people
almost to an extent. Yeah. It's like, no, actually really awful things can happen.
Yeah. Like,
so I appreciated that.
Die, which is, I did not see that coming either. I assumed they would all, make it out at the end.
Everyone dies except John and Locke, right?
And Locke, everybody else dies, which is just so sad. And the way that the description of the twins get their throats cut, and he describes it as like their last laugh, because they were like the jokesters. I'm just like, oh my goodness, their last smiles. Like, that's so sad.
Yeah. Speaking of twists, though, something I see fairly often when I'm editing, especially like first-time novels, is the writer will have a character, have a plan, they will execute the plan. Something minor will get in the way that they overcome really easily, and then they will achieve their plan. And I'm always like, you need to either have something go wrong, or like something happen differently than what they expected, and they have to like change their plan on the fly, or they fail. That's also an option. They fail at their plan. So like something different needs to happen, because otherwise it's just like, okay, it's kind of like going grocery shopping. Here's my list of groceries. I go and I get them, and I come home. It's like, I don't want to read about that. You know,
if the problem is so minor that it's like, oh, they're out of one brand of salsa, so I'm going to get the other brand of salsa.
They overcome the problem too easily sometimes. And so, it's very tempting to do that, and I understand why it's easy, because you want your hero to succeed, and you're like, no, I don't want them to have a tough time. I want them to be okay. You're like, well, no, you got to make it life difficult.
I think
this one really did. Like, when I was rereading it, I was like, I remember that they get out of this, but at this point, I don't understand how. Like, they are so screwed. How do they possibly get out? And that was on a reread, so, like, clearly it was pretty good.
I think the world building really lent into that with, what is it, the mage swords? I'm blanking on the term. What is the falconer called?
Oh, Bonds Mage.
Yeah, they were cool.
They like just this like kind of immovable force, so to speak. And like, that is really a part of the world building where it's like, this is just like an aspect of the world that you can't possibly conquer. They do, obviously, by the end. Spoilers for a 20-year-old novel. But
that we already
really,
summarized.
But it's like really hard. Like, it's not just a like, it would be easy for it to be like, oh, and then this random person showed up and started chatting with whoever, and that threw a wrench into our plans. It's like, no, it's built into the world that there's this very, very tough, very, very intense person that you can't possibly beat. That's the thing that I did like about Locke, is that he's not particularly fantastic at anything.
Yeah,
other than
he's
disguise.
kind of average.
He's kind of average.
He's not great at like fighting. He's not like a
well,
ninja.
he was very good at stealing. He was so good that he had to be put on a different job or something.
Stealing in disguise. He's very good, kind of thing.
But it's like one thing. It's not everything.
Yeah, exactly. So I enjoyed that about him, where it's like, you know, I'm good at these like kind of two things. I can't punch people once and knock them out.
That's why I need my best friend.
And then, that's why I need my bestie. Yeah. And then the world building itself lends to like, oh, and there's also really powerful mages. Have fun. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
I'm super glad we got to talk about that, because I did really like that as an aspect of like the magic system, being that like there's these select few people who can use magic. They are so powerful that they are so elite, and the reason that they don't just do everything is because they're so expensive. So if you hire one, you have like so much money. And also, not only are they almost impossible to kill, but you also can't kill them, because if you kill one, every single other one will hunt you down for the rest of your life until you're dead. So it's like, even if you win, you can't win, which just makes it so much like worse to try and deal with, for sure.
Yeah, so when you have something so powerful like that built into your world, it can be easy to sort of write yourself into a corner and be like, I don't know how to get my characters out of this. Yeah. And I think that's actually an okay place to be, because you want your readers to feel like that. And then once you're into that corner, you like take time to brainstorm. You don't have to solve it immediately, because your characters certainly won't.
I have a very distinct memory of being very stressed out watching Indiana Jones as a kid. And my mom saying, don't worry, he's gonna survive, because the good guy always survives. This is a movie, it's a story. The good guy always survives. And like, that was the thing she taught me. Obviously it makes sense for a kid's movie when you have like a 5-year-old having a panic attack over Indiana Jones kind of thing. That makes sense. But I think about that a lot in writing, where it's like, I like stories where I don't know if the good guy is going to survive. I don't know if Indiana Jones is going to be crushed by the boulder. And
in adult books, it's not a given. In middle grade, it's pretty much a given that the hero will live. But in adult, not so much.
And I like this, because there were a few moments where I was like, are we going to flip perspective to Jean? Instead now,
and everybody else
like
dies. Yeah. And I think especially in a heist where your character you're being told the character is brilliant, you need to show them being brilliant, right? Like, that's the classic showverse. Because if you just say over and over, oh yeah, Locke's so smart, he's so smart, and then the only thing he overcomes is like a super simple problem, you're like, is he smart, or all his problems are really easy? Like, you need to put him in a corner, and so it's like, oh yeah, he is brilliant because he got out of that. Wow. Yeah, as we've already talked about, like, clever plans and high stakes, definitely part of the heist genre, which we for sure had in here, like life or death stuff going on.
It's usually life or death, or like going to prison, like in Ocean's 11, or a combination.
Not every heist is a life or death situation. Memorable crew and colorful characters, I think we definitely had. Like, I thought the crew was all very distinct, other than the twins, who are kind of interchangeable on purpose as like part of the joke. But
which, like I said, I think is almost a trope at this point.
Oh yeah, I feel bad for very twins. Fred and George Weasley. Like it's very,
exactly.
I feel like Harry Potter is to blame for that, maybe.
Yeah, I wonder if there must be other examples of like clever. I mean, even like, you know, like Parent Trap. The twins are younger, but they're also like, you know,
there's
smart
other examples even before that.
That's definitely a thing.
The author did a really good job of the curiosity seeds for Sabitha. Is that her name?
Yeah, Sabetha. Yeah, or at least that's how I pronounced it.
Because I'm like, well, I want to meet her now, and you never do.
She's like built up, which I think is interesting, because it like builds her up to this almost like mythical level based on how the characters all talk about her and how Locke feels about her, which I think is kind of perfect given that like he's our main character and that's his view of her, so you're really getting the same view of her that he has of like this like incredible mythological creature kind of thing.
I did get some similar vibes to The Name of the Wind because both feels that way about Denna, the female character, and she's not that great. So I got like a similar, is this woman just like an average person and Locke's just obsessed with her?
That's fair. She does show up in later books. I think she's pretty cool.
Okay, cool.
So...
I mean, maybe some people think Denna's cool. I don't really like her.
I don't think she is. But it is, but I think there is also that, like, of course, the person that you're in love with, you think that they're like, the most amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
Person. But I think she lives up to the hype pretty well, which is cool. Okay. She shows up mostly in book 3.
That's a long time for her to show up, though, with how much she's built up.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Detailed world building, I think, is super important for a heist, because especially when so much of your story relies on like clever thinking and people coming up with stuff, if you don't really, I think, flesh out the world and make it feel real, a lot of those things feel pulled out of thin air and then they don't feel earned. It's like, oh, well, you never mentioned this thing before and now suddenly that's the key that unlocks the whole puzzle, which can be really unsatisfying if you don't do that, in my opinion.
I feel like they didn't give too much, though. I think this was a really good example of it gave you just enough information. Mm-hmm. And a nice sandbox to play in to build up kind of the rest of the world in your mind. Like, it wasn't, like you open up the first chapter and it's like, okay, here's the entire government structure, here's the magic system, here's, everything.
Like the
there
magic wasn't that elaborate. The politics weren't that elaborate. It was just there was enough to feel immersed.
Yeah, it felt lived in. Like, the details were smaller. Like, I don't think that they were kind of those high level ones, but you got details. Like, I really loved his use of slang. Like, they had like street slang for like, I forget what's in the front. Like, there's like where like the orphan's twist was like a scrap of fabric with like essentially like their version of like pepper spray that you would throw in someone's face. Right. So like stuff like that, where it's like those little details that make it feel really organic and really like lived in, that I think is really fun. And especially because heists tend to be, they're not always, but like tend to be on the grittier side, where I think you really need those details because you want it to feel like, gritty, like real. And then, of course, the kind of last big tropes for heist novels are obsession, which we have like the obsession with, they're really kind of just obsessed with doing cons. Like, we even see they have all this treasure, but it just sits in their vault. They don't even live like high on the hog or spend all their money. They just are like obsessed with doing
I found that interesting.
Smarter than people.
It's not even necessarily about the money, it's about the process of getting it.
The love of the game. And then mirrored also with like Locke's obsession with his lady love who's gone across the ocean. And then things go off the rails, which you've already talked about, why that's important to have that in your heist as well, and how that's like a big trope of like things going off the rails in major ways. Did either of you see like the end twists coming, or did you like guess how they were going to get out of stuff, or were you pretty surprised by how things worked out in the novel?
I was pretty surprised.
Yeah,
I had like an idea, but like there were things where I'm like, okay, that is definitely going to play a part, but I don't know what part it's going to play.
Where does this piece
kind of
fit?
thing? Yeah, I'm like, it's a piece of the puzzle, but what's the final picture going to look like? So there were definitely quite a few things. And also just relentlessly killing off characters.
Oh.
Like, I love
like
that.
Flies.
I love that in a book because you don't expect it, right? Like, often, authors or writers or game masters, whoever, are kind of scared to kill their darlings. Oh my goodness, this author was not in any way, shape, or form. So even after the first death, I was like, oh, that's the impactful one. And then still somehow I was a little bit surprised by each death where I was like, oh no, we're still going. Okay. Yeah.
I think you have both. You have authors who never want to kill off your characters, and then you have ones who do it sort of on purpose because they want to get an emotional reaction out of the reader, and neither of those is a good reason to kill off your characters. And I like how this author did it, in that it was just sort of realistic, like they're doing really dangerous stuff, so people are gonna die.
Yeah.
And they do,
Yeah.
and it is emotional, but it didn't feel like the author was trying to manipulate me, you know.
Yeah.
Even though I
It
guess
wasn't
in an
shock
extent every
factor
author
killings.
is manipulating their reader. Like that's sort of the entire thing about writing a novel is you are trying to immerse a person in your world.
But it also made sense for the story. And
And I didn't
Yeah.
feel like my strings were
Right.
being moved like
they
a
were
puppet.
manipulating you well and subtly, which is what you
It was
want.
subtle.
Yeah. And it's interesting because thinking about it now, it's because I think Allison, you pointed it out, like Locke's tendency to go for the like kind of more reckless or more revenge oriented path, and that's the whole motivation of the villain in this, which makes him a really interesting kind of foil, and I think informs potentially or might inform Locke's like growth throughout the series is like this is what happens if that's kind of the choices that you make, and like will you decide to do something else is an interesting comparison between your pro and antagonists. But that, I think, is most of the time that we have set aside for Tavern Talk. So let's pop on over to Proprietor's Pick. And Allison, what did you pick? Six of Crows as your Proprietor's Pick novel?
I did not. It was tempting, though. I picked Foundry Side by Robert Jackson Bennett. It's from 2018, and here's what it's about. Sanchia Grado is a thief, and a damn good one, and her latest target, a heavily guarded warehouse on Tavan's docks, is nothing her unique abilities can't handle. But unbeknownst to her, Sanchia's been sent to steal an artifact of unimaginable power, an object that could revolutionize the magical technology known as scribing. The merchant houses who control this magic, the art of using coded commands to imbue everyday objects with sentience, have already used it to transform Tavan into a vast, remorseless capitalist machine. But if they can unlock the artifact's secrets, they will rewrite the world itself to suit their aims. Now someone in those houses wants Sanchia dead and the artifact for themselves, and in the city of Tavan, there's nobody with the power to stop them. To have a chance at surviving and at stopping the deadly transformation that's underway, Sanchia will have to marshal unlikely allies, learn to harness the artifact's power for herself, and undergo her own transformation, one that will turn her into something she could never have imagined. Dun dun dun!
Ooh.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
It sounds cool.
Well,
There's like
it sounds awful to be in her shoes, but
yeah. And I'm always attracted to interesting magic systems, and this whole creating sentient objects is fascinating.
Yeah,
to me.
I'm a sucker for a sentient object because I frequently anthropomorphize things that I handle on a day-to-day basis.
Exactly.
Like, how does my keyboard feel? Like me just teasing it all day kind of thing. So
Speaking of, we actually made a magic system like this in one of our world
building
workshops. A little
like
plug
first ones.
to join our Patreon so you can listen to that, because that kind of made me think of that. But this sounds really cool. I actually just added it to my TBR because I'm like, I actually want to read this.
Yeah.
I love the extra layer that magic can add to a heist, which is why I think I love like a fantasy heist way more than like a regular heist. It's just another fun element for your characters to contend with. And now we have for you Last Call. These will be our concluding thoughts and questions that will help you make your world building better based on The Lies of Locke Lamora, which was written by Scott Lynch, and we completely did not say his name once any other time through this podcast.
Not a single time.
So sorry, Scott Lynch. You are such a master of disguise and
Lynch.
thievery that you blended in and we didn't even see. Thank you. Yes, Scott Lynch. There we go.
Just to make up for it.
There we go. Yes, yeah. Allison, what do you take away from The Lies of Locke Lamora to apply to world building?
Oh, this is tough. There's so much to talk about when talking about heists. But I think I want to say that it can be fun to experiment with structure. Whenever you're playing with structure, like play however you want, try different things. Sometimes it's fun just to try something for the sake of it, like, oh, someone else did this, I'm going to try it. But then with the end product, make sure that you have really good reasons for the ending structure of your novel. So, like, originally I was questioning, like, what is the reason for these flashbacks? And it didn't work for me, but it worked for Emma and Christiana. And upon thinking upon it more, there are good reasons for the flashbacks. It broke up a kind of a complicated story and made it a little bit more palatable. And I think that's a really good reason to do that. But if you're just doing it for, like, sometimes, and I'm guilty of this as well, I'll just, like, write something because I'm like, oh, this is cool, or this is, like, an artsy thing that I could do just for, like, just sake. And that just doesn't work very well in genre fiction. I think it works a bit better in literary where you're, like, experimenting that way. But I think it's good to have reasons behind whatever decisions you make, was basically my point.
Yeah, I think that makes sense for sure.
Yeah.
Christiana, what about you? What do you take away from the world building of The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch?
By Scott Lynch. Thank you, Scott Lynch. I think what Scott Lynch did very well. I like it when a character isn't the chosen one, who isn't, absolutely perfect at everything. Because I think that relates to the reader more often than not, right? I like to believe in my personal life I'm the absolute god of one particular thing, but I'm not. I'm just a person, right? So it's really fun to read a character that's existing in this world that does have people like the Falconer, that does have these like really intense, powerful beings that exist in this really intense magic structure, but Locke is just a guy. He's just a guy. He's good at some specific things, but he's not,
Yeah, he's a smart guy, but he's still
he's very smart. He's very clever, but ultimately he's just a dude facing a very, 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 very powerful mage. And I like that. I think that's something that you could take into your world building and your storytelling, is that the average person doesn't relate to being the top 1%. So creating a character that isn't that.
Chosen one stories, like people like to put themselves in that character too.
Yeah.
But I really love this person wasn't prophesied to kill anyone or do anything.
No.
They're just
kind of right place, right time, right set of skills for.
And he was just kind of forced into a situation. He's smart, he's capable, but he's not the chosen one. And I think that's what I really enjoyed about this story.
And he takes opportunities. Like even in one of the very first scenes where he's little and he like joins the group of little thieves that he's not supposed to be a part of, but he just like sort of starts walking with them and then hopes the guy won't notice, but he does. But of course he still gets in.
Yeah.
So, sometimes if your character has a pinch of audacity, it takes them real far, right? Like I originally actually had different advice, and then I realized that one of the things I love about this novel we haven't touched on, so I'm going to bring it in here, which is the, we briefly mentioned at the beginning, but the fact that the city is very, like, Venice-inspired. Like, there's canals, there's, like, the kind of medieval Italian gangs. It was very cool, but it also felt very much uniquely like its own, like, Camorr, like its own place. It didn't just feel like, oh, this is just a one-for-one of Venice. It's like Venice-inspired. And I think that can be a really great way of doing world building. Like, coming up with a whole unique world that's not like anything on Earth is kind of difficult, and also can be less relatable, because if nothing is a familiar touchstone for your audience, they're going to feel completely lost. So I think taking a city, taking a place that you know and you love, and like getting inspired by those details and then adding twists to it to make it unique can be a really great way of coming up with a really fun world or setting, especially if it's like so localized in one place. Like, it's a lot harder if you're doing like a whole nation or world, but like one city. I think you could do that really well. So like, and even try that as an exercise, like describe your home city but then make it fantasy, and like see like what twists would you add to make it into its own world, kind of thing. Could be really fun.
And I think Scott Lynch did a fantastic job of not getting...
We've now said his name more than any other author ever.
I think he did a good job of building this city based around Venice. You already have this sort of, platonic form in your mind of what Venice looks like. So he didn't have to give you too many details. It's a city with canals based off of water, a little bit Italian mafioso. You get the picture? Great, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can focus on the fun stuff. Yeah. Yeah, Scott Lynch did a great job of that.
Thank you, Scott Lynch.
And there's certainly a lot of cities and cultures from our world to take inspiration from. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Short on choices there.
Yeah.
So.
Winnipeg is going to be the next one.
Yeah, as soon as
Count
you
my
said that,
words.
I'm like, ooh, fantasy Winnipeg. What would that
There
look like?
is, plug for an entirely unrelated novel, there is a fantasy series that's like set in Winnipeg by a Winnipeg
what?
author. The first book is called The Scion of the Fox.
I read that. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
which
was
is very
really good.
fun. It's fun to kind of like be like, oh yeah, they're talking about this bridge or whatever. So just plug for any of our listeners who are from Winnipeg. Scion of the Fox is a urban fantasy.
I'm
in
going to
Winnipeg.
have to read that.
My husband is playing in a D&D game where it's like all fantasy D&D races and everything, but it's set in Winnipeg. So they're like going
love
to
that.
places they know. And
Oh,
it's
that's
amazing.
so much fun.
Yeah.
That brings us to closing time. We clearly could talk about this forever. The novel The Lies of Lamora by Scott Lynch is great, and we learned so much. But this highly complex, ruthless, brilliant scheme isn't going to execute itself, and therefore we must now go. Thank you so much for joining us at the tavern. If hands-on world building is something that interests you along with these more theoretical discussions, then you should absolutely check out our world building workshops. These are bonus monthly episodes where we build a different element of a world every session, and these are available for patrons at our $5 and up tiers. You can find us at patreon.com/worldbuilderstavern if you want to check those out. In this month's episode, which should already be out for your listening pleasure, we will be building a religion. Will be, I say, because us in the past have not yet built it, but when you're listening to it, us in the future will have made it already. Check out our description for a link to help a Palestinian family escape Gaza. You can find us on our website, worldbuilderstavern.com, which has links to our TikTok, Discord, and our bookshop.org page, where you can buy books we talk about on the podcast, like The Lies of Lamora by Scott Lynch, which will support us and an indie bookstore. We hope to serve you here again soon, but until next time, scram!
Bye.
Get out of here.